Guess what, guys? Root rot and dry rot are not the same thing. So when it comes to our houseplants, root rot happens when there's too much moisture and not enough oxygen. When we have plants that are planted in pots, it's not the same as when plants are out in the wild, planted in the earth, or grown on the side of a tree where there is perfect drainage. When you have plants in a pot growing, the water is very stagnant and it stays in there for a very long time. It's not constantly draining, and there's always the threat of fungus, diseases causing an outbreak in your soil, in your substrate, and inevitably in your roots and your plant's health. And when you have a plant that you overwater and you didn't allow it to get enough oxygen, that is what causes root rot. Now you can tell the difference between root rot and dry rot. Root rot, when you overwater, it's got kind of a funky smell. It smells sometimes like fish. It smells sometimes like trash. It just does not smell good. When you have dry rot, that is when the substrate gets too dry, the roots get too dry, and the roots have no more water to suck up to feed the foliage, to feed the stem, and to give life to the rest of the plant. The plant then kicks into survival mode where it reabsorbs energy from its root system, and it will actually kill off roots. And slowly roots will start to die off at the tip, and it will run all the way up. So then what happens is that when you go to water it again, you have all this dead root tissue, all this dead plant tissue in your substrate that then becomes a breeding ground for fungus and bacteria. And then that can cause diseases, that can cause root rot, that can cause a lot of problems, that can end up killing your plant. Now sometimes you can get a little bit of dry rot, but your plant can bounce back and still combat the dry rot while still growing new roots, while still putting out new leaves. When it comes to anthuriums, a red flag that your plant is being underwatered and is going through a little bit of dry rot, a new leaf is coming in, it will die off. It will abort that new leaf because it is now in survival mode and it's saying to itself, oh shoot, I cannot be putting out a new leaf. I have to focus my energy on surviving this drought period. So let me show you the project we're going to tackle today. This here is a propagation of my Anthurium No ID Black Swan. This is directly from the mother plant. I will insert some B-roll of what the new leaves look like when they emerge because they are just this spilt oil madness. There's blues and beautiful shades of green, beautiful hues, beautiful iridescence. I just love this thing. And then they harden off to this really interesting matte color, kind of like a teal color almost. Now let me show you guys what the situation is here. Let's zoom you in. Class is in session. Get in here. Okay, are you seeing all the green roots? Yeah, those green roots are healthy. When you have a transparent container like this, roots that are usually white, which is what Anthurium roots are, they will turn green. They'll actually photosynthesize. Isn't that funny? But, oh, by the way, this is all algae. But do you see the roots here? Those like brownish, tannish roots right there? You see one right there. Those are roots that have rotted away. Now, there is a significant amount of dry rot in here. There is quite a bit of new root growth, all those new white tips. So this plant is still very much salvageable. It just finished putting out this beautiful leaf. It was also putting out an inflorescence. I since cut that off. But I'm going to show you how I treat plants that have dry rot. So let's unpop this guy and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So we have our fresh new substrate here. I have sphagnum moss in here. I have a little bit of charcoal in here, which has some antibacterial properties. I rinsed it because it has a lot of like soot and dust on it when you get it. Rinsed it, threw it in here. I also have some orchid bark in here and some tree fern fiber that I got from Tezula plants. Now I am starting to experiment with some more texture and more materials in my substrate as opposed to just sphagnum moss, which is what I usually use. Because when the sphagnum moss fully dries out, you get this. My theory is that if I can have something where if the sphagnum moss dries out, but maybe the orchid bark has some moisture that it absorbed, or maybe some of the other substrate in this medium is still holding on to moisture, then it's not like an all or nothing kind of thing. I'm experimenting with it, guys. It's all about experimenting. But I've been finding some good success with this method so far. So we'll see how it does long term. This is way too much. I don't need all of this. But yeah, so here is the new vessel. So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to up-pot him. Let's see if I can just rip him out. You know what? I ain't gonna use this again. Let me just cut it open so I don't ruin him. Oh! Motherfucker. Oh, you son of a bitch. Oh! Yeah, see guys, I am paying for my past mistakes. Don't use a container with a lip on it. You see that? It just makes it so hard to take out. You want something like this where there's no lip. We're just gonna have to chop open the whole thing. Oh, we ain't reusing this, so might as well. Destroy the pot to save the plant. Okay. Yeah, you guys, do you see how ridiculous this is? Don't use a lip, guys. Don't use a jar. This is a plastic jar, but don't even use a glass jar if it has a lip. Use a glass vase, and then you can actually reuse the pots. You can reuse the vases later on if you don't destroy them. Okay, oh, come on, just get out of here, you fat ass. Just get out of there! Oh my God, so freaking close. There, oh my God, finally, Jesus Christ. So ideally, guys, in the future, you would just pull it out nice and easy. Just pull it out because it's a cylindrical vase. This with a lip, absolutely not. Get out of here. I'm never gonna use that again. Well, because I already broke into it, I'm just going to detangle this root mass. If there's some root breakage, that's fine. It's always ideal to do this when you have a big, strong root system, so it's good that I'm doing this now while I still have a lot of roots to work with. Are you guys seeing how much good rootage there still is to work with here? Look at that. Also, look at how the inner roots are still white. Do you see that right there? Because those roots, that one just broke off, because those roots did not have any access to light, so they did not need to photosynthesize for the plant. All right, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna put your fingers through it like this. Kind of like you're putting your fingers through hair. Just to kind of loosely untangle the hair, just like the major clumps, you know? If any secondary roots break off, just break off the whole thing, that's fine. Because all we want are like the main roots anyway. And I am going to make a little cut here because it looks like there might be a tiny bit of rot in that stem. So I'm gonna cut it right there to where it's totally white and there's no rot at all. I'm going to keep this part of the plant above the substrate. So it's definitely not gonna have any access to moisture and it's not going to rot. So all this substrate is trash. This is all trash. Get this trash out of my life forever. Look at this. You did your duty and then you did me dirty. So get out of here. So we're going to take some pumice here and we're going to create a free draining base. Like 1/2 inch to 1 inch or so, nothing crazy. All right, now we're going to put a little bit of a base at the bottom. Well, we already put the base, but we're gonna put a little bit of a cushion for the roots just to kind of sit on. And we're going to just kind of swirly-whirly him in so that the roots can wrap around and not break. Now guys, are you seeing this? Do you see how the roots are pretty much filling up that whole thing? So it may have looked like I was up-potting him drastically, but to be honest guys, he really needed this extra space. Okay, so he's looking good, he's looking nice and centered in there, and we're going to get to work. Bitch. Make sure that you get all of the big air pockets, all those little spaces in between the roots. You want to make sure that all the substrate gets into all those nooks and crannies. I'm squeezing the new substrate here to get any of the excess water out of it, because we are going to go back at the end and water this with a little bit of Thiazan water, with a little bit of hydrogen peroxide in it, just a little concoction just to fight off any infections that might try to get into the broken roots. But this is what you do, guys. When you have a plant that is getting a little bit of dry rot, it means that it's drying out too quickly for your schedule. So what you need to do to help it bounce back is you need to repot it, get rid of that substrate, get rid of those dead roots, and we're going to start him anew. Anew? What does that even mean, Jake? What stupid moron put A in front of new and said anew? Because that is like people, right? Don't people say that? I don't know. Did like Shakespeare say that or something? Anew. That sounds Shakespearean, doesn't it? That little prima donna with his fancy fucking words. 'Tis the east and Juliet is the sun. That ain't poetry. That's just him saying you're smoking hot. What a frickin' creep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy notebook, no, toothbrush, No! I keep calling this a toothbrush. It's a paintbrush, mother trucker. And I am going to tuck in all of the empty spaces here, all those big air pockets, because we don't want those guys. So I'm gonna go in there and just very gently with the paintbrush, not toothbrush, oh my God. Jake, go brush your teeth. I brush my teeth, guys, I promise. I brush my teeth so much that I think everything's a toothbrush. I think a pencil's a toothbrush. I think this plant is a toothbrush. I thought it was Anthurium toothbrush. And finally, guys, something that is very important. When you are repotting a plant, repotting an Anthurium, or a philodendron, aeroids, anything that has a chunk, that has a stem, because this was a propagation. Like, ready, you see right there, this big chunk. Remember I cut it? Whether you cut it or not, now that the plant has been weakened from the dry rot and being repotted, so now it's in double shock right now, this chunk right here is very weak and it's very susceptible to root rot. So what you want to do, you want to make sure the entire thing is out of the substrate and not touching any moisture. So I can put my finger underneath it. I don't know if you guys can see that. I can put my finger underneath it, okay? Now, when you have a plant that's wobbly like this, you're gonna take a bamboo stick. I like bamboo because it's not as prone to like mold and stuff, unlike wood, like twigs and things. I'm gonna put that in there like this. Can you guys even see what I'm doing? If I do it this way. This way, yeah. Okay, and this will stabilize him. And this is, this is just for the first few weeks until he starts rooting in, and then he starts to stabilize himself. And then after a few weeks, guys, once he starts rooting, if you want to add more substrate on top to stabilize your plant, go for it. But this is for the first few weeks when it's transitioning, guys, okay? Plants need the most opportunity we can give them, right? Because why even bother repotting this thing if it's probably gonna die anyway? So we wanna give this guy the best chance at survival. And another thing you guys can do, if it helps, you can put more substrate in, but just create a little bit of a canyon, if you will. Create like a valley, create like a hole, and remove all of the substrate away from the chunk while it's reestablishing. The last thing you want for rock, because once rock gets into that chunk, it's so difficult for it to bounce back, guys. Even if you cut rot out, which is what I did earlier as a precaution, because it looked like there may have been a little bit of preliminary rot in there, it's still very, very weak and very, very susceptible. So gotta be very, very careful. I can't tell you how many plants I've lost because of stem rot. Not root rot, not pest outbreaks. I've never lost a plant from pest outbreaks, but stem rot, yup, I sure have. And some of you might be like, well, Jake, do you think it's because of the no drainage? Nope. I've lost plants from stem rot in terracotta pots with drainage holes. It ain't the vase that's doing it. It's really improper watering when it comes down to it. When you miss just one too many waterings and rot starts to kick in. Okay, that's pretty good. He's a little bit wobbly, but I think he's gonna do pretty well. And finally, guys, we're going to give him a little bit of a chemical bath. I have water in here, just a couple drops of Phizan, right there, Phizan 20. And then just a little squirt of hydrogen peroxide in there. We're not gonna drench him with it. We're just going to give him a little bit of a watering. Okay. Oh! All right, get the mess out of here. Oh, the mess. All right, and there he is, guys. I don't know if you can see. I'll try to put in my finger so you can kind of see. Guys, look, I can put my whole finger underneath it. It's not coming in contact with the wet substrate, and there's plenty of aeration in there so that it can callus over while it rehabs. But that is what you do, guys, when you have a plant with dry rot. When you have an Anthurium with dry rot, let's be real. Every plant's different, every genus, every family of plants, but Anthuriums overall, and I would say this can extend to philodendrons as well. Try saying that 3 times fast. Philodendrons as well. Philodendrons as well. can't do it. You act when it still has plenty of roots to work with, plenty of nice, good, viable root tips. You unpot it, you take off all the old substrate, you plant it in something new and into a bigger pot. And you can be generous about upsizing it. Because here's the thing, guys, if something happens to my mother plant, my black swan, I want to be able to have insurance. So I can't have the insurance be dying on me. That happened to my Mr. Triangle. I don't know if any of you have seen my Mr. Triangle videos. Yeah, my mother plant, I propagated it quite aggressively a few months ago, and the mother plant, I kind of neglected it. It got dry rot, guys. I still make mistakes. It got dry rot, and now it's in my terrarium rehabbing. Thankfully, I have this. So I have this. It is rooting in there, and it's very, very healthy, and it's putting out a new, or it's like about to put out a new leaf right there. But yeah, it was just this little propagation right there. It was just a stump, put out that leaf a few months ago, put out this leaf like a month or two ago. You know, this is a pretty slow grower, but I think he'll be okay. So it's good to have insurance, guys, because you never know what could happen. I almost lost my Mr. Triangle, but thankfully I made a cut a while ago. So yeah, guys, make propagations of your favorite plants because you just never know what might happen, okay? Or maybe give a prop to one of your friends or something. Someone that you chill with, not someone like you don't know, but somebody that you're friends with, like, hey, do you want this plant? Okay, we'll like share this, you can have it, but like in case mine dies, like can I get a cutting back, you know, and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Help each other out, guys. But that's the end of the video. If you like this video, then let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Watch some more videos. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Bye-bye. This has been Jake, also known as Plant Gay for Life. Bye-bye.